Okay, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, hello, good afternoon, and welcome on board this beautiful boat, the Millennium City. For your trip westbound, our next stop, Westminster. Now folks, as we leave the piers here in London, it's a legal requirement for us crew members to pass on a very quick and short safety message. Of course, this is not to scare or alarm you in any way. It is only to make you more familiar with this vessel you are currently travelling. As I've said, the name of this boat is the Millennium City. She does have a ticket to hold and carry up to 500 passengers. And all around this boat, we do have life-saving equipment on board, stored in cupboards and boxes, marched around the vessel in the international green and cream stickers. And of course, us, your captains and crew, we are fully trained to deal with any unlikely events of an emergency. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here, folks, so you are in safe hands, do not worry. And in a very unlikely event of an emergency on our river trip today, I'd just like to wish you all the very best of luck. Just seeing who's listening. Good to see there is a few. Of course, remain calm, stay seated, and await further instructions from a member of the crew. Now, did we all understand that safety message, ladies and gentlemen? Are we all happy, ladies and gentlemen? You should be, because the sun is shining, and that doesn't happen very often in London, so you should be very happy. Make the most of it. Now, folks, on our way up river, our next stop being Westminster Pier, you do have two options on board these boats regarding a guide or a coach. You see, option one, our boats are fitted with an automatic GPS guiding computer machine. And it does point out a few buildings and places of interest to you on our way up river. But it does point out these lovely places of interest to you in a very boring way. It is mainly promotion for this company, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm sure you haven't travelled to London today to know what flavour crisps they're selling downstairs behind the boat. So your second option is, I could stand out here with you beautiful people and give you a live concert. Now, we're not professional, we are just your crew, licensed Queen's watermen. We've worked on this river for many years. It actually goes back, an old tradition in our families, generations, to become a Queen's waterman and work on this river. See, and this local knowledge we like to pass on to you lovely people. And we do get better feedback from our passengers from giving these live concerts. So is that okay with you folks? Would you prefer one? Okay. Don't get too excited, you haven't heard it yet. It could be the worst you've ever heard. I'm only joking, it's the best. And you all know that, that's why you've come in your hundreds to it. Now understand, not everyone's first language on board this boat today is English. So what I'll do, as I'm trying to do now, is talk nice, slowly and clearly, so you can all try to understand me a little bit better. Just remember, ladies and gentlemen, I do not normally talk this slow, and there is definitely nothing wrong with me, okay? I just want you to understand everything I'm telling you. Toilets are downstairs at the back of the boat, also do have a fully licensed bar. And if you do have any questions, ladies and gentlemen, feel free to ask the person next to you, because I do not want to hear it. But if they don't know the answer, I suppose you could come and ask us. We're here. So what we'll do, we'll start off with these apartments over here to your right hand side. And as you can imagine, the property here in London, across this river, on the banks, is very expensive. And a lot of people are fascinated with how much these apartments cost. And you can see these square fronted glass apartments to your right hand side. These actually went on sale at the start of the pandemic a few years ago. Obviously, the higher you go, the more expensive your apartment will cost you. Now, for a one-bedroom, ground floor apartment over here to your right-hand side, does anyone want to have a quick little guess how much you think the starting price was for one of those one-bedroom apartments? More than 2 million, more than 4.5. Wow. Sounds like an auction, this, doesn't it? I'm not selling them, I promise. I wish I was, I'd be minted, and I wouldn't be talking to you lovely people. It would only cost you £9 million for one of those ground floor apartments. Obviously, the higher you go, as I say, the more expensive it. Now, over to your right hand side, you can see the white stone building behind the trees. This is Her Majesty's Water Guard and Customs House building, with a clock face at the top and the 6 black chimneys on the roof. As I say, the Water Guard Customs building. And it's where all the illegal contraband that makes its way into the UK, it goes to be destroyed, where it is burnt and destroyed in a night here behind the back of the building. There's a little hole in the ground. 9 floors below ground level, it's an incinerator, and that's where they burn all of that illegal contraband that makes its way into London. And still to this very day, the politicians of this country, they tell us that all that illegal contraband that is burned, you'll be able to see, because you will see a few times a year black smoke coming out the top of those very chimneys, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I've actually worked on this river a very long time, and I've still never seen a puff of smoke leave those chimneys. But I do have a close friend of mine that works inside that building, and he tells me the Christmas star parties, they are phenomenal. And they're still going on to this very day, ladies and gentlemen. That's how good it is. Or it makes its way to the Houses of Parliament, because they're all off their head anyway, aren't they? They don't have a clue what's going on. Now you can see over here to your right, past a sandy coloured building, we have a blue glass building. And a lot of people call this the Tetris building, as it has a funny shape to it. Now when people travel on this river, on our boats, they ask me what that building is called. And I do tell those lovely people, I don't have a clue. But I have been told that is actually the head office for London's apprenticeship window cleaning team, folks. Great place to start, eh? Once they finish that building, they cross over to the left-hand side. You see, they take on the Shard in South London. Last year, that was the tallest building to stand here in Western Europe. Over 1,017 foot tall. Home to the 6-star Shangri-La Hotel, restaurants, casinos, offices and apartments. The apartments inside of that building would set you back no less than £45 million. And they start from the 70th floor going upwards, folks. 74th floor. Now the bridge in front of us is London Bridge. And before we get to it, look over to your right, in between the gap of the buildings, a white stone column monument with a bull with the golden flames at the top. Designed by Sir Christopher Reynolds to mark the Great Fire of London. This is where it started in 1666 in a local bakery in Pudding Lane. And that is how one of these London bridges burnt down in that Fire of London. And you'll know that from the old nursery rhyme, ladies and gentlemen, of course. And this is the 5th London bridge to span here across the River Thames. Over to your left-hand side, a little gap in between the buildings there. Just by Pickford's Hall, you can see the back end of an old pirate ship, a working replica of Sir Francis Drake's Golden Hind. That replica was also circled and navigated around this globe twice, like the original. The original, it was put on task by Queen Elizabeth I to go round the Spanish Isles stealing golden treasure. When it arrived back here in the UK, for the 2nd time, it had enough golden treasure on board to get this country out of financial debt. Probably for the first and very last time, no doubt. Now one for the adults on board, ladies and gentlemen. Over to your right hand side, you can see underneath the railway arch at Cannon Street, these glass box windows. This is a London's 5-star health spa, and they built it facing the river and not the roadside to stop the spying eyes looking in. Well, clearly they forgot about the boats that pass every couple of minutes, because when you look inside those windows most of the time, you do get to see some semi-naked people relaxing and enjoying that spa. And if you did just look inside those windows with me today, ladies and gentlemen, you will probably believe me when I say this. Some days are much better than others. Some days, the sights are that horrible, trust me, you wish you never looked. Scar you for life. Some days, they're that amazing, we'll actually turn the boat around and go for another look. That's how good it gets. Now you can see over there to your right, the barge full of grey containers. This is Walbrook Wharf. This is where over 90% of London's rubbish is transported up and down the River Thames. On a high tide, a tugboat will collect that barge. See, the tide will flood into London for 5 hours. It will leave London for 7 hours. That happens twice a day. And the tide will rise from 6 to 8 metres in every single tide. To your right hand side, the building with the 4 pillar columns outside, Vintners Hall. The people work inside of those offices, they have the best job here in London. They get to try all the wines, beers, spirits and alcohol that they put on sale in our shops, bars and restaurants, and of course to our general public. Over to your left on the south bank, a white rounded building, thatched roof, oak beams down the centre. A replica of William Shakespeare's Rose and Globe Theatre. It's the only building here in London to be made from flammable materials. That's why it took them over 20 years to get planning permission to build it after the Great Fire of London. But still to this very day, in the UK summer months, you can go inside the Globe Theatre and watch one of Shakespeare's many, many plays. The likes of Romeo and Juliet, and all the others that no one else can ever remember. For just a small price of only £5. Great value for money here in London, folks, for live entertainment. Now we're just approaching halfway of our journey, folks. Are you enjoying the live commentary so far? Okay, fantastic. I wasn't going to stop anyway, so I don't know why I asked you. Now this bridge is the Millennium Footbridge. It's known here on this river and here in London as the Wibbly Wobbly Bridge. And it was given that name, the nickname, the Wobbly Bridge, as it had its grand opening in June 2000 by Her Majesty the Queen. It had its grand closing the very same day, just 3 hours later, by the Metropolitan Police. People was walking across that bridge, falling over and feeling sick. The bridge was swaying 4 foot from side to side. The architect, of course, didn't blame it on the way he designed his bridge. He did, however, blame it on how aggressively Londoners were walking across it on their morning commute to work. It was shut for another 1 year. They spent a further £7 million on that bridge before it reopened. The bridge in front of us is the newly refurbished Blackfriars Railway Bridge. It was meant to reopen in 2012 to get the sport fans into the capital to watch the Olympic Games. But of course, like most things here in London, it wasn't finished on time. It opened 2 years later. And if you look at the roof of this station, you see it has a funny shape. It's actually fully solar panel. That's where the station itself gets over 75% of its incoming power from. And it did only cost a small amount of £500 million to build and complete. Thank you to the taxpayers of this country. Very kind of them. You can see either side the red column, the first Dover and Chatham Links railway line to hold you in the city of London itself. As we pass beneath this bridge, the lowest bridge, the Blackfriars, on our trip today, look over to your right hand side, you'll see an old Gothic style building with a green sloping roof. This is the old City of London School for Boys, where most of the past PMs of our country took up their early years of education, including Winston Churchill himself, before going on to Oxford and Cambridge. And if you've got a keen eye, ladies and gentlemen, look underneath the green roof of that old school, you'll see 4 figures, 4 statues of this country's finest men. From left to right, those statues are John Milton, Isaac Newton, William Shakespeare, and the one far right with a ball at the end of his foot, that is David Beckham, ladies and gentlemen. You're seeing him still listening. Of course it's not David Beckham, and you'll know that because if you've ever heard David Beckham speak before, you know he's never spent a day in school in his life. The old cofferdam to your right hand side, the biggest civil engineering project this country has ever taken on board, to rebuild London's Victorian times sewage system. Originally built to deal with a population in the capital of only 2 million people. And as say here in London alone, the population is over 10 million people. It is a 6-year project, already 3 years behind schedule. And if you have a look over there to your right hand side, you'll probably see why. Because there's one man and he's sitting down and doing nothing. It's like that every single day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to London. He'll still be there next week, trust me. He gets a lovely suntan though. Along the river wall to your right hand side, above the tidal line and below each black lamppost, can you all see those green lions' heads? Now they was used here in London as the old flood warning indicator to the police. You see, if the water was up to the line's mouth, they'd evacuate all underground businesses, tube stations, getting everyone above the waterline to a much safer place. They did actually come up with a little rhyme to help them remember this point. If you think you know it, folks, don't be shy, it's very easy. They used to say, if the lines are drinking, London is sinking. If the water was up to the line's main, London would go down the drain. Well, I've come up with another rhyme. I think mine's a little bit better. Hope you'll all agree. I like to say, if the lion's manes are ducked, London is well and truly flooded. A few children on this boat today, I'm on my best behaviour. Now you can see the old Wellington over here to your right hand side, served in the Second World War in New Zealand for our Royal Navy. Since she's been back here in the UK, she's now a floating livery hall for Master Mariners. That just means she's now a floating pub for retired sea captains. Prince Charles is the head chief of that drinking club, and you sometimes find him and his other half Camilla, after a few many gin and tonics, stumbling around the front of that vessel, practicing the famous scene from Titanic. And yes, it's not a pretty sight at all, ladies and gentlemen, especially on a windy day like this. His ears flap about, you see. Gets a good signal though. You can see over to your right, Somerset House, past the Victorian backgrounds. Built and made for the Dukes and Earls of Somerset. It's where they used to keep all the country's birth, marriage and death certificates for England and Wales. That's why that building actually got the nickname of the Hatcham, Matcham and the Spatcham building. The bridge in front of us is Waterloo Road Bridge, also known here in London and on this river as the Ladies' Bridge, as it was built in the Second World War by over 95% female labour workforce while the men was off fighting for king and country. And it was the only bridge here in London that was actually finished on time. And of course completed well under budget. So a round of applause for the ladies of London, folks. Fantastic job. Don't get too excited. I did hear there was a man in charge. But he was making the cups of tea all day, so don't worry about it. Over to your right, the building with a green roof and the Union flag at the top. I'm sure some of you recognise it from when you left there only a few hours ago. That is the famous back entrance to London's Savoy Hotel. Now for a river room for one night inside the Savoy, it would set you back up to £2,000 a night. For a river room at the top of the Green Suite, it would set you back up to £20,000 per night, ladies and gentlemen. 20 grand a night. I suppose that's not too bad. They do tell you, you do get a full English breakfast the very next day. Not bad for 20 grand a night, ain't folks? You get 2 sausages instead of 1. Cleopatra's Needle there, the old tall Egyptian obelisk. The oldest point of interest you will pass on this river trip today, as that needle is older than the city of London itself, over 3,500 years old. Of course, his twin sister stands in Central Park, New York. Now some say we stole that needle. I like to say we was given it, as it does sound a lot better. So it was given it by a very thankful Egyptian government, where we helped defeat Napoleon and the French in the battle of the River Nile. But we definitely did steal it, folks. Us Brits are very good at that. We've been doing it for centuries, you see. The bridge in front of us, the Charing Cross Bridge, with the Jubilee football bridges at either side. Now if there is only just one person on this bridge, we will ask you to wave, ladies and gentlemen, because they say it will give you 7 years good luck if you get a wave from the people on the Jubilee football bridges. So don't be shy. Wave at the people on the bridge. 7 years good luck, eh? We could all do with that. And there is another walkway on the other side, ladies and gentlemen. So don't be shy, keep waving with Sandy Hill. We could all do with the years of good luck, as I said. Did you all get a wave off of this bridge? Yeah? 7 years bad luck this side. Over to your left, the large observation wheel. The London Eye saw, we call that, ladies and gentlemen. The London Eye. Now from the very top pod, you can see up to 30 odd miles in all directions. That is as far upriver in front of us as Windsor Castle, and as far downstream behind us as the QE2 bridge, the Dartford crossing down in Essex. Now the eye is made up of 32 glass pods. That is not a random number, it has 32 pods to represent the 32 boroughs here in London. Now I know I spoke to a few of you who got on the boat today. Some of you are going on the London Eye, and it's actually in the second most popular destination in the world now to propose to a loved one, folks. Just out of curiosity, does anyone know the first place? It's not the Eiffel Tower, it's actually this boat that you're currently on. You're right, it is the Eiffel Tower. This boat is a very close third. So you can get on at the bottom of the London Eye with your loved one and 25 different strangers. It will take you 15 minutes to get to the top of the eye, where they will hold the wheel for just 1 minute, so you can ask the big question. Now I know it takes the fun out of it, gentlemen, but just make sure your other half is going to say yes first. Or it could be the worst, the most awkward 15 minutes of your life, back down to the bottom of the London Eye, with 25 strangers all pointing and laughing at you, and someone who doesn't even love you. Very awkward. So we don't recommend it, folks. Marriage, that is. Now in front of the vessel, Westminster Pier. You can see the Houses of Parliament, the palaces of Westminster. Now you can see the clock tower is renamed in 2012 to the Queen's Diamond Jubilee, to the Queen Elizabeth Tower. But everybody, all around the world, including myself, we do refer to that tower as Big Ben. It is globally known as Big Ben, and that is just the name of the 13.5-ton bell that rings inside of that clock tower, folks. You see, it was named after the architect who put it there. His name was Ben. He was a very short, loud, angry, round man. So when the bell chimed, it made a lot of noise, like his angry personality, folks. But we have been told it is a very good job they didn't name that bell after Ben's twin brother, who helped him with a project at the time, because his name was Richard. You couldn't call a big bell Big Richard overlooking London, could you, folks? I'm glad some of you got that. Thank you very much. Some of you may never get it. Don't worry yourself. Just don't Google it in front of your children, ladies and gentlemen. That's all I'll tell you. So as we turn the boat around, we ask that you remain seated. We're turning the boat around to face the incoming tide into London. It makes it a lot easier, as you can see. All these other boats playing silly boats, fucking about. We do things properly on these boats, ladies and gentlemen, on this beautiful millennium city. Now this next stop, Westminster Pier. When this boat leaves, we'll be going over to the London Eye, but we will be here about 15 or 20 minutes or so. If you want to cross the river, it may be quicker for you to walk across Westminster Bridge, but you're more than welcome to stay on board, as that is the boat's next stop. But this is Westminster, folks. One more thing to mention though, ladies and gentlemen, as I said to you all at the start of our trip today, and as you've all probably worked out for yourself by now, hard to believe I know, but we are not professional tour guides. We are just your licensed Queen's watermen to get you here safely from A to B on this royal highway. But we do have an old tradition on these boats here in London and on this river that goes back hundreds of years. And that old tradition, it is called the old captain's silver champagne ice bucket. Now you see this little bucket, ladies and gentlemen, it does get left on the gates as you exit the boat. And we do only leave it there if you'd like to show any token of appreciation for our efforts on the live guide today. And of course, it's completely voluntary for you to do so, as it is to give these commentaries. We don't get paid for these, of course. We're trying to encourage you beautiful people back out onto this river. Over the last couple of weeks, this is the busiest our boats have been since before the pandemic. And without you returning to this beautiful river, we couldn't continue the old tradition that's gone back generations of our families, ladies and gentlemen, to become a Queen's waterman.